Welcome to the Big Kickoff Football Show with myself, Roy Shanahan, and joining me from thebigkickoff.com, it's Neil Dobbs. Neil, the Euros have been, I suppose, exciting so far. It's just good to see football. It's good to see crowds back at football. England, Scotland, the other night. What have you made of England so far?
England are a little bit unusual. If I'm looking at the likes of a Germany or maybe Italy, that type of team, they seem to have come into the tournament with a little bit more, maybe form, a bit more gusto, a bit more, like even watching the Italian team today, they were, even with a lot of changes, they just look like they have a little bit more go about them. England, I don't know whether they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Every pundit, every person thought that England were going to comfortably deal with Scotland. 3-0, 2-0, they're going to keep them at an arm's length, and they'll get in behind and score eventually. It didn't turn out like that. England's campaign, I think it's an interesting one to watch what he's going to do later in the stage with the whole Henderson-Maguire scenario. Is it a question now that it's too late for them and it's gone and he just has them in the camp? But for me, I just don't think England have got into that groove, where you need to be to win a tournament, where you're getting better every game and you're kind of building towards, a good quarterfinal, semi-final. In other words, when you're going up against one of the bigger teams. So maybe their momentum, that really stalled their momentum. I think good start against Croatia, solid, and then that really kind of stifled them. And maybe people are asking questions now about them, maybe, which you wouldn't have seen before the game.
Yeah. What about the changes he made for Scotland? Two fullbacks, James and Shaw, came in. I didn't see that they made much of a difference, as in they didn't affect the team in any way. I thought Shaw actually was attacking fairly well down the left-hand side, better than Trippier would. And I think Trippier probably was put in the other game against Croatia for his defensive responsibilities. Yeah. So you couldn't really put the blame on the changes. So was it their attitude about Scotland? Do you think that maybe they just foreseeing that Scotland weren't going to be much of a problem? It wasn't a game that they were going to lose.
Yeah, I was thinking about this during the week, and I wanted to maybe hint at saying that they were, I wouldn't say complacent, but I think it's somewhere between complacency and a little bit of maybe arrogancy or something like that, that they just didn't see Scotland as enough of a threat. I don't think they paid them enough respect. And I think that kind of, whether that came from the management and the backroom staff, but it definitely got onto the field because the players didn't play with any tempo. Scotland were sitting in and allowing them to have the ball, but there was no penetration, there was no quick passing. It's almost like England just expected, look, we're going to turn up, we're better for these player for player, and expect a result to happen. And I think it was a lack of respect in many ways, that they didn't think, do you know what, we need to get into second, third gear here and really, really get after them and earn a win. Whereas Scotland seeing this as, the proper derby that it should be, get up for the game, get in about them, get stuck in. And Scotland really, really, they just had that edge, you know what I mean? They had that aggression. And now bear in mind, Scotland were also fighting for their lives because, a loss and they were in big, big trouble. So, yeah, I just think England almost dismissed them as if to say, look, we turn up, we're going to win the game. And Scotland, they played right into the Scottish hands.
Yeah. Harry Kane hasn't scored, but not only has he not scored, he hasn't got a shot on target so far. So how do you surmise his form so far? This thing of dropping deep where he has to do it for Spurs nearly, well, definitely under Mourinho. Does he have to do it with England?
I don't know whether this is programmed into him now, and this is just coming off the back of a season where he was doing it so often. And, we were talking many times on the show saying he's on the halfway line more often than not, receiving the ball, or even deeper inside where the semicircle is, to receive a ball and then try bring in pacey flow, like the likes of Son and stuff like that. He's trying to release, and he seems to have brought that into the international game now. And I expected Harry Kane, don't get me wrong, a goal a game. Would you be, before the tournament, you might have been having a look at him for highest goal scorer. You think the team is set up for the likes of Foden and Sterling and Grealish and these lads to be setting up Harry Kane. And at the moment, they seem to be playing Spurs-esque, as in Kane is taking control of the two centre-backs. And then, you've Foden and Sterling. Sterling seems to be kind of carrying a bit of the weight of responsibility where he's bringing the attacking threat. But they definitely need more out of Harry Kane. Well, I would say more out of Harry Kane. I think they need to set up better, that they're giving him a supply line. They're giving him crosses. They're setting a platform where they can get higher up the field. Now, whether that means they need to change the personnel in order to bring the best out of Harry Kane, you have Sancho, you have Grealish, you have Rashford. would that help him? Only time will tell when Southgate decides if he's going to rely on them players in the next game.
So you've mentioned those players. I was going to mention them myself. Are those players looking to get into this team? As in, do you think that Southgate is going to make changes now for the last game, or do you feel that he's comfortable with what he has?
I don't know what he thought of that. As in, does he think that's a good point? As in, is he happy with where he is at the moment? And in other words, when he stepped off the pitch, I was looking at his press conference today, and he was kind of saying, "Oh yeah, look, we're happy with the point. We're happy with the position we're in." But inside, secretly, is he happy the way they performed? Was that his message going on the field, that they were going to have such a low tempo? Because it was only really the last 20 minutes maybe that, they got up a bit of a head of steam and looked like doing anything. So it kind of, you're guessing of what he thinks. But I would be surprised maybe if he doesn't bring in Grealish to start in the next game, maybe even Rashford and Sancho, if he still fancies him to give them a go, because some of them haven't figured. Sancho, I don't think has figured it all, has he, at this stage? So maybe he's out of the reckoning. But Grealish, he seems to be kind of grooming him to bring him on a bigger platform. So maybe he's the one that he's looking at. But if I was Southgate, I would definitely change it up a little bit for the next game and give these guys, a little bit more game time under their belts for the hopefully the bigger matches,
Yeah. Now, one team, like you said, who has got a bit of momentum and had played today, beat Wales 1-0. Italy have made a fine start, made a load of changes today, and they're looking promising. They're looking like, as someone had said before, not hugely overly influential individuals, but a great group of players.
Yeah, there's something real good about the Italian spirit this year. Even when they were, they were going in today, it was like I thought they played at a lovely tempo. I think they controlled the game. Again, they just something, when you make 8 or 9 changes to a team, generally it interrupts the momentum, and you get a kind of a sticky game sometimes. But that wasn't the case today. I think they stuck to the game plan. Every player that came in kind of knew his role, the way that Mancini wants them to play. What I really like about Italy at the moment is Jorginho and Verratti in particular are 2 quality players in the middle of the park. And Jorginho really sets the tone for Italy, the way he plays for the Italians. And he's a big, big plus for them. But he's featured in every game so far. So he hasn't messed with the core, but he was able to make, 8 changes or something like that, which is a great, because their back line is aged. So you want to be giving these guys a little bit of extra rest. They're on some run. They're on, 25, 26 games, something crazy like that. So Mancini really hasn't played well. 10 out of 10 wins in the qualifiers, and now 3 wins on the bounce. I mean, it literally could not go any better for them at the moment. They look like a smashing side. Yeah,
I'm looking at Wales. Gareth Bale had an absolute beaut of a chance. Volley scooted over the top of the bar. But Wales, in all games that I've seen, even the Turkey game, I'm not overly impressed with Wales. I don't think there's a whole lot to them. They have a couple of players who will make a little bit of a difference. I still can't see them progressing too far, albeit they may still get a good draw from what I believe.
Yeah, it's funny with Wales. I expect Wales to be like the Italian camp is, where there's an excitement in there. And if you go back to the last tournament under Wales, when they probably overachieved, and the likes of Ramsey and these boys were coming up with big performances, they looked like they were a team that could cause an upset, that they didn't fear who they were going up against. And I don't know whether it's a transition. I don't know whether it's maybe lack of a crowd atmosphere, that type of thing. But it's almost like just a spark missing from the Welsh team that you would have seen in previous tournaments. Maybe that's because Bale is, he probably doesn't have it in him anymore. Maybe Ramsey is, off the back of a kind of a poorish season. Maybe they're just that team that has reached the end of their transition. And this could be, a tournament too far for one or two of them. But even the subs he made today, I thought probably should have come on a little bit earlier. There's a couple of lads off Bournemouth and stuff like that might have given him a little bit something different. And he waited till 84 minutes. I suppose, look, they know they were happy that they were going to get out of the group anyway. But I would have liked to see a little bit more out of Wales. I think they've gone as far as they're going to go, depending on a very favourable draw in the next round.
Yeah. Oisin says, good evening. Get your B and your V sorted, Oisin. Good evening to you. Just on, who did you have backed for the Euros, Neil? Who was your team that you thought was going to do something special this year?
Outside of outside of France, because I still think France have the strongest squad. I thought Portugal could do something maybe. Just the fact that the group that they were drawn in was a bit of a disaster. But I was kind of thinking defensive wise. Looking at Portugal, they had Ruben Diaz in there. Pepe is very experienced, although he can be a little bit erratic. They lost Cancelo, didn't they, as well? But I mean, I thought defensive wise, Portugal are normally very tight, very mean when it comes to giving away goals, and I think they've good quality up front that they've got goals in that team. In fact, they've got goals all over the park, really. I don't. It obviously depends on their next result or two, but they were one that maybe stood out for me, just the amount of big name players that they have on their side.
So what did you think of the game yesterday? One of the reasons why I ask is because I had backed Germany at the start of the tournament. After seeing them against France, I was a little bit worried. Not that they were still getting on possession of the ball. They were still knocking the ball around. But in the final third, they didn't look anyway comfortable at all in creating anything. And then against Portugal, it was a whole different story. And I'm confused now because you're looking at them, were Portugal that bad or were Germany that good?
I just think it was a great game. I mean, both, and that's just why I'm very surprised by Portugal. They were so open in that game where I expected them to be a little bit more pragmatic, to sit back a little bit off Germany and try hit them with their counter with their good players. But they just seemed to play into German hands, and they got pulled apart in the back line. Germany scored some great goals. I was actually, I was very impressed. Well, not very impressed, but I was impressed enough that with the Germany-France game, the Germans, they had a good mentality in the game. They bossed possession. They were good for 2 thirds, as you said, of the game. But just the final third, you didn't think they were going to score. Whereas they flipped that within a couple of days. Like, that game could have ended a cricket score for both sides. It was so open. It exploited Portugal's weakness in the back. Maybe, I was saying there, Pepe is a bridge too far for him at the age that he is. But the Germans were really, really good. And again, it's Lowe's last tournament. Muller is still hanging in there. They have that kind of old guard, don't they? So I think the Germans are definitely worth a punt. I'd be happy with your bet so far, but we'll see. The Germans are notorious for mentality alone, but they do have good talent. Talent.
What about Werner and Sané? They can't seem to get into that side. I thought it was odd how they wouldn't have those players in there. A lot of teams now are counter-attacking. If you thought Germany were not great up forward, at least you think they might have a counter-attacking game. But in fairness, he's got that win under his belt. But there's a lot being said still about Sané's attitude, and a lot was said when he was at Manchester City.
Yeah, whatever happened to Sané? He was like a wide left attacker. You could put him on the wide right, and he was when I seen him going to Bayern, I thought he was going to be like the Robin and Ribery. They'd Gnabry, who they're playing through the middle now as well because they're struggling for goals. But I would have thought Sané and Gnabry would have been right, left, wide left, wide right, and that would have been the old-fashioned Bayern flying down the wings, 2 quick wingers. Sané seems to be getting, I'd say, even converted into a 10, which I never ever saw him as. So I don't know why Bayern bought him to play him there. Obviously, it's a different story at Bayern, but it seems to have translated into the German team now, where they're playing like Kimmich as a right wing back almost. So they sacrificed their wide men for attacking fullbacks almost, which I don't think suits Sané then, because they're putting him more central. The attitude thing, it never leaves. Pep might have been right to get rid of him. And at the moment, he's been proven right, because they definitely don't miss him, number one. And he hasn't really lit up the German league. Can't even get into the starting 11. That's not a great German side. But there's something not right there with him. Bit of man management maybe is needed there in the next year or two, because he could just be a forgotten man if it keeps continuing like that.
Yeah. Now we look at it on the other side with Ronaldo. Ronaldo just seems to be born to break records, and there he is again in the European Championships. And now he's looking to get the all-time goal scorer record, where he's only 2 goals behind is Ali Daei. But he's going to be playing through to the next World Cup, so he's going to trash that, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, look, the man's a machine. He's an absolute machine. And you look at Ronaldo at Portugal, he's pivotal. They play for him. The whole team is set up for him to play. Why would he even consider retiring? And then you look at someone like Gareth Bale, where, Wales used to be set up to play around Gareth Bale, but Ronaldo is the ultimate professional. You know what I mean? You've probably seen the memes during the week with the cans of Coke or the bottles of Coke you know, and he's basically saying no to Coke and he's picking up his water. And, you know, he is the ultimate professional. And I love the fact that he breaks records. He's hungry to break everything. And, you know, whatever about the Ronaldo Messi debate, there's one thing for sure is that Ronaldo is an absolute phenomenal, but the likes of which we may never see again in our lifetimes.
Yeah, and it was gas because there was rumours going around that he's taking ice baths in the middle of the night. And the thing is, you wouldn't put it past him, but then you wouldn't put it past Stories to go out there just to show how professional he is. And, you know, but one thing you know he's going to do, and it showed from the goal that they scored when he headed the ball clear, counter-attack the full length of the pitch to tap in, you know, 7 or 8 yards out. He still has that desire. So here's the question. Juventus don't seem to want them. David Bogle doesn't seem to think that he can do a job for anyone else. Bar maybe go to PSG and retire. What do you feel? Do you still think now, looking at him, that he could go to a big club and score goals? Because, I mean, I think it was 35 goals for Juventus last year.
Yeah, really lean season, wasn't it, for him? He look, I don't know what you do with someone like Ronaldo. It's his age is a problem, because if you were to bring him into a club, say, you know, just a random club, say Manchester City decided, you know what, we're going to break the bank, we'll make all the money back on shirt sales, which they would. You've got to change your team to accommodate him. And I do say accommodate, because like Messi now, he is slightly on the way down, which means what do you get out of him? Do you get a year out of him? Would you get 2 years out of him? But you need to change your whole system to play for him. And then again, it's the Messi Ronaldo thing where, you know, Ronald Koeman comes out and says, hey, we all have to run an extra mile a game to compensate for Messi not running the mile a game. So he's a luxury player. So Ronaldo isn't going to be tracking back. You know, in any other system, in any other team, even I think that's why Aguero is heading out of Manchester City, because he is the old school, I'll get you goals, but I won't do anything else. And football seems to be losing these kind of luxury players, you know what I mean, where they all have to do a proper day's work. Ask Harry Kane.
They don't want the centre forward nearly at Manchester City, so it's a completely different scenario there, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, if you put him into Manchester United, if you put him into, you know, Liverpool, you put him into any other team, the centre forward puts in a serious shift in the Premier League, regardless if you're Burnley or if you're Manchester City. It's just expected these days. So, you know, as I said, Harry Kane puts in a serious shift for Spurs and England, and like, he's back heading corners, he's breaking up, he's holding up play, he's doing a job. With Ronaldo, you're not getting any of that, but of course you get goals out of him. Now, I agree with Dave somewhat. For the Premier League, I think he'd be absolutely mad to come back, and I think it'd be a massive gamble for him. But where else can he go? There'd be an issue with money for Ronaldo, prestige. You know, he wants records, he wants to be involved in the Champions League. It's an unusual. Look, no one would have ever seen him move to Italy. I think you would have thought he would have stayed at Real Madrid and retired. But yeah, it'd be interesting if someone was to take a punt on him. Number one, are Juve definitely going to get rid of him, or are they done with him? And number two, who else could afford to bring him in? It'd be an interesting one to see.
Well, I can't see anyone paying a transfer fee for him. If they're going to let him go, I think someone will pick him up and pay his wages. But you're talking about buying him for 40, 50, 60 million. Just can't see anyone do that. Maybe PSG, if they want to just throw a few quid away, but I can't see anyone else buying him. I just couldn't see it happening.
Yeah, like who could afford it? That's it. Like, you look from a Man United perspective, you know, would he be an answer? Would he give you something? It's not like Cavani, where you bring the guy in and you leave him on the bench and you're playing for 30 minutes here and there, and then when he's in a bit of form, you give him an extra game or two. Ronaldo would have to go into a team where he is guaranteed 90 minutes. The guy wants to be on the field. He's capable of being on the field for 90 minutes of every game. You know, for the Premier League at least, I don't think so. I think it'd be too difficult for someone to bring him in there.
Okay, what have you made of the tournament so far? Who stood out for you?
Well, we touched on the Italians. I think have been fantastic. Their attitude, their energy, the way they play, the way they control the tempo, I think is just absolutely fantastic in every game they've played. France have had a kind of a slow start. I think, like that I was saying, when you want to build up momentum in the tournament, you don't need necessarily to come into the first game when you kind of know you're going to progress out of the group. So they need to go up a level maybe in their next game, which will see them into the knockouts.
Can I ask you something before you go off, France? Antoine Griezmann, I have never I've never kind of liked Antoine Griezmann. I kind of feel he's another Paul Pogba, where now he does work harder than Pogba. I will agree with that. But I just think he goes from hot to cold, that you'll get good days with him, but you'll probably get more bad days out of him. I've just never seen that consistency with him. And then France have then the two of them in there. So I can't figure out how they make it work. But what's your thoughts on Griezmann?
When he moved to Barcelona, I remember there was they were having a big discussion on Sky or one of them where Steven Gerrard was in the press box with someone else off Barcelona pundit, and they were basically saying, if they were actually talking about Man United putting in a bid at the time for Griezmann, and Gerrard was saying, "Oh God, I hope he doesn't go there. He's lethal." This is when he was in his pomp for Atletico. So Simeone really, really had him playing to his peak. And since he's moved, he's been another Dembele, he's been another Coutinho. He's been a nobody. Like he's had no exposure whatsoever since he's moved to Barcelona. It's like the size of the club has killed him. So I don't think he's any form this year, much like Paul Pogba. But yeah, you put the two of them in behind Kante and they do a job for you. They seem to be effective. But even the Germans, I thought they overran France in the middle of the field. At times, they passed through them quite easily. But Kante was probably the difference maker. I guess to answer your question, it'd be interesting to see Pogba and Griezmann in the midfield for France without Kante beside him. But you may never get to see that. But for me, Griezmann, since the last tournament where he was at Atletico, he was flying form. He hasn't really hit the heights that you thought he might have gone on to with Barcelona.
Yeah. Belgium have started off relatively well, haven't they? They look sharp against Denmark. Denmark probably played the type of football that any team they could have played against, and they probably would have beat them. But only for Denmark or for Belgium being able to bring on De Bruyne, Hazard, Witsel at half-time and be able to change a game. And that's seeing them through. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought that was one of the best games of the tournament so far. Can you see Belgium now going that extra step? They got knocked out by Wales in the last 8 the last time. Can you see them making that extra step or two to the final?
I think someone is going to do a number on Belgium. They're going to run into somebody. I don't know what their opponents are going to be in the next round, but if they come into one of the heavyweights, I think someone's going to do a number on them. Denmark really got at their back line in a manner that I didn't expect. Now, when the heavyweights come on, then they went up a gear. Obviously, De Bruyne is going to add something to you. Look, they have goals. I think going forward, they're a very settled side. They're very well coached, as in they've been playing the same way now for practically the last 5 or 6 years. Martinez has been playing good brand of football. I just think their back line, when it comes down to the crunch in a tight game, their back line is going to let them down because they don't have enough quality, I don't think, in there. And Denmark exposed them. Denmark should have scored maybe another 1 or 2. They just didn't really have anyone up front to kind of punish them. But you run into it like that, a Portugal, a France, someone, they're going to do a number on Belgium, I think.
Yeah. Now, I'm just looking down here because I have an article here. Ronnie Whelan got slated, not just on social media, but by journalists, one from the Irish Times, who slated him about, there was a 10-minute, on the 10-minute mark, they were going to knock the ball out or stop the ball and clap for Eriksen because he had a cardiac arrest. Now, Ronnie Whelan said, there's no need for this. He's okay. Let's get on with the football, right? And it was an uproar. You're missing the point. You're missing that the fact that there's, there's more to it. The football is only football. Life is life. I've seen so many people, and I said it was the majority of people who said they were disgusted, and he's only an old fogey and a dinosaur, and it made me worry because I actually agreed with him.
Right.
I don't get it. Why would you stop a game for someone? If the lad had died, I don't totally understand it. It's huge, but he's recovering. He's doing well. To knock a ball out and to stop a game of football and the flow, and it could have even led to a ball going into a box or something like that, or getting into a good position, and then they're forcing them to knock the ball out. I just thought it was. I thought it was nonsense. What do you think about it?
Do you know what it reminds me? Like, why could they not have done something? I don't understand why they kick the ball out and make a big furore of it. Why not put something up on the screens? Everyone claps. You know, it's marked. The commentator goes, "Oh, this is for Eriksen." Blah blah blah. I do think it was a bridge too far. Maybe it reminds me of this kind of. Remember, Chelsea used to do this on the last day of the season. They kick the ball out of play and give bloody John Terry a guard of honour off the field against a side that was already relegated. I remember one year that to me, it reeks a little bit of that. Where, now, don't get me wrong, John Terry doesn't deserve any guard of honour off in the bloody any minute to be kicking him off. Get off the field and retire like everybody else, right? But Eriksen recovered at least from a heart attack, so maybe he goes up a notch on my one for that one. But yeah, it was probably a bit much. The sentiment is a nice sentiment, so whoever come up with the idea, and obviously you have to get this agreed by both captains for both teams. I don't know if they felt, you know, like you, with one of the captains sitting at home going, geez, I don't know about that, but I can't say anything because
better just go along with it.
Yeah, go along and say, yeah, no bother. So I don't understand why people give out about Ronnie Whelan. I think he was off the cuff going, here, it's just really what they're doing. So yeah.
Well, I heard about it beforehand, and I was, come on, what are you doing that for? And then all those thoughts of what happens if it's in a certain area of the ball, and then they're telling them to kick it out and going, hold on, we're after counter-attacking here. And, all these scenarios came into my head, and I was thinking, no, this is a load of rubbish. And as you said, crowd could just clap for on the 10th minute or whatever it was. But, yeah, I don't know. I must be getting a lot older now because I'm getting very frustrated with a lot of things in life. There's a lot of these snowflakes and they're driving me mad. Of course, we're delighted to see Eriksen, make a full recovery, and it's brilliant to see. And cheering on Denmark was really looking forward to seeing how they played, and I thought they did very well. But I'm with Ronnie, so we'll make a campaign out of it.
The old guard.
Yeah, we stick with the old guard. Big news coming out of Merseyside. Rafael Benitez looks like he could be on the verge of joining Everton now. Here's something else that I didn't know what was going on, because I couldn't believe, I suppose Liverpool fans, I could believe that they would be a little bit upset, but I couldn't believe that Everton fans would be upset about the appointment of Rafa Benitez. For a club and fans, but especially the fans that haven't achieved anything in donkey's years, I just don't think they can be picky about who they get in. And Rafa Benitez is one of the finest managers in the world. And I heard one person come around and say, well, you know what, we could get Eddie Howe in, or we could get Graham Potter in. And I'm thinking, you've got Rafa Benitez. It doesn't matter if he's from or he was with Liverpool or not. He's not a Scouser. He's Spanish. He took a job. That's my point of view. I've read something from yourself, though, which says a hell of a lot different.
Right. So, I had a little nibble at this during the week because people were putting in, there was a difference of opinion in Liverpool forums because I was interested to see what people thought. So some people felt betrayed, as in, how could Benitez even think about going for a job like this? My opinion is, and people were saying, look, for everything that Rafa Benitez has done for Liverpool, he restored their pride. But I really think Rafa Benitez got Liverpool in the same way that Klopp did. He embedded into the culture. He bought locally, and he still owns the house even all these years later. He really got the justice scenario of what was going on. Even when he left Liverpool, he made like a donation of 97,000 to the trust. It was real little shrewd things that Benitez did. The other thing he did was he fought off the Americans and the ownership situation tooth and nail. He was a real kind of like a caretaker of the club. So I really think he got Liverpool, and he won the European Cup, which was at the time unbelievable because we were going nowhere under previous managers. But then I kind of thought, for all them reasons, you want to say good luck and well done and go to Everton. But I also think for them reasons, it feels a little strange that in a derby he'll be sitting in a dugout, contemplating how to take 3 points from Liverpool. So as a fan, I'm a little bit, okay, I don't begrudge him an opportunity, but why Everton? Do you know what I mean? Why Everton? So part of me is a little bit torn on it.
Do you think if Graham Souness, just say it was Graham Souness, went to Everton and took that job, that there would be as much of a worry? because Graham Souness was a poor Liverpool manager. And maybe it's a little worry here that with Benitez, that he actually might do something at Everton.
Well, I think I'll put it this right. You look
albeit now, Graham Souness is probably the worst one that I could have picked because he's a bit of an icon there.
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the quality of getting in a guy like Rafa Benitez for Everton, I mean, obviously Ancelotti is going there, and that was high profile, absolutely high profile manager. Now, obviously, he's after doing a legger now to first sign and getting out the door. But yeah, I think Benitez will go in there and he will, like, you look at what he did with Newcastle, no funding, no backing. You know, they're a club that, you know, they're shopping in the bargain basement. Everton have put a serious investment. The owners have put a serious investment in place. They're building the stadium. They're bringing in players that they would have never been linked with before. They're paying good wages. They are building something. It would have been interesting where Ancelotti went with them next year, because defensively and structurally, he had them almost where he kind of wanted them. But Benitez goes in there and gets the same backing. He could really do a good job at Everton. You know, it could be the perfect marriage, albeit if it starts wrong or if they have a wobble, he won't get any time in the job. He won't get any time at all. But listen, football supporters, we're as fickle as the next, because if you get success, it doesn't matter who brings it. Look at Mourinho going to Tottenham. They never thought to be in that scenario. But if he'd have brought them a cup, all is forgiven once you're winning. Regardless of the crap style you play, if you're bringing home a trophy, or if you're, you know, knocking on third or fourth place, that type of thing for Everton, obviously top four. But yeah, it'll be quickly forgotten if he does a good job.
And that's what I was going to say. So you can understand the Liverpool worry, the Liverpool's fans worry that he actually might succeed there. So I cannot understand the Everton's that this is a manager that could now take on to the next level. It's also proven when you see Ancelotti take that step away that Ancelotti wasn't really there for a project. He was there for a gap, I suppose, in his football career. Benitez has shown he was willing to stay at Newcastle United. Now, Newcastle haven't done that in even longer than Everton, but he was willing to stay there if he got the terms and conditions and build something at Newcastle. He's willing to take a project up and develop something.
Yeah. He
will do that at Everton. He will sit there. He will stay with them. He thinks there's progression. He sees now with a stadium there, with the money that's behind it, this team can go and win things. So should Everton fans probably just quieten down and accept here, this is probably their best opportunity to get someone in to win them something.
Yeah, I mean, look, you don't bite off your nose to spite your face. It's just one of these things that, you know, Benitez, as you say there, he's been embedded in Liverpool. He knows the area, he knows the Premier League, he knows everything. He's perfectly situated. This is a guy that brought Valencia in Spain to a league title, to Champions League finals. This is a guy that got Liverpool from absolutely nowhere when he arrived in. And we had a genuine shot at the title in 1 or 2 years that he was there. He brought in Torres. He used his connections. You know, he brought out the best in Gerrard. He's a very, very shrewd guy. Now, obviously, there's a big difference in dealing with a budget or a staff at Newcastle than there is at Everton. So the question will remain, and we'll get answers soon enough. What can Benitez do with a club that backs the manager, which Everton clearly do? And what can he do when he's given a bit of time, as you say, to build a project? So if I were Everton fans, listen, you know, there's a lot worse out there you could have got stuck with, insofar as very underwhelming appointments. I think Everton have done their Eddie Howe type of manager already. It didn't work out. Benitez could be that guy. And let's be honest, he starts winning games, gets them up that table, makes them hard to beat. There'll be very, very few complaints. So they should be happy.
Yeah. Gary says Liverpool squad is better than the Everton squad. Sure, Liverpool cannot be worried about Everton. The whole thing is, Neil, where do Liverpool go now? What does Klopp do now to make Liverpool take that next step? Because obviously you looked at the season this year, and yes, they had the defensive problems. Is that enough now for Liverpool to be able to challenge this year, just get the players back, or do they need something else?
So first and foremost, I don't think Liverpool need to be worried about Everton until Everton start really challenging for the top 4 places, which, you know, even this year, they look like they might have an out run at Christmas, and then it badly faded away. So don't get me wrong, Everton still have a big build to do. They don't quite have the right balance between attacking and defending, for example, as in they're too defensively set up for my liking anyway. For Liverpool, I think that we need to strengthen the middle again. So you've lost Wijnaldum, and most importantly, anyone that's watched Liverpool the last 3 seasons, the replacements that are currently at the club for Wijnaldum are Curtis Jones, who's only a young kid plying his trade, Shaqiri, who can't stay fit, Keita, who can't stay fit, and Milner, who is 35, 36, wherever he is now this year. So Liverpool, their midfield is in danger, and I think this is why they let Wijnaldum go. They've Thiago, they've Henderson, they've Milner, all over 30s. They need to get him. They need to get him a guy that's going to play 50 games this season. I know there's a couple of guys in the German league they're looking at, but they need to plug the gap and replace Wijnaldum and not rely on Curtis Jones, because at this moment that's a lot of pressure to put on a young lad like that.
So here's Stu was wrote up. Benitez went to Real, gone under a dozen games, went to Inter Milan, flopped. The guy has been a fossil for years. Agree or disagree, Neil?
I think the Real job was an interesting one, because I don't think Benitez was ever a Real type of manager. As in, they want all-out attack. They want to win by goals. They don't want to sit, defend. They don't want pragmatism, basically, in their game. I think Real maybe wasn't the best fit for him, although, you know, you're offered Real Madrid, you have to go and give it a shot.
You would think Inter would be.
You think Inter would have been. Yeah, definitely. I agree on that one. I don't think it worked out well at Inter, but you think the Italian league, the way Benitez can set up, Benitez is quite comfortable to sit there and win 1-0. I remember years ago when Liverpool played Champions League, people used to say this is the golden era, going into Europe and winning 1-0. You score 1 goal and Rafa shut up shop, and you just expected a 1-0 win. Absolutely no worries. Boring, but very, very effective. So I was surprised he didn't work out better at Inter. I wouldn't call him a fossil, but he is. I think we've discussed this on the show many, many times. I think you look at Mourinho, I think you look at Benitez, in the manner that they set their teams up. They win games in the 1-0 fashion rather than in the 5-1 fashion, which with Pep at City and Klopp at Liverpool, you don't win leagues playing like this anymore, unless maybe you go to a different league. But you look at Bayern, you look at City, you look at other than Atletico Madrid, they broke the mold this year. They would play a Benitez-esque style, very, very pragmatic at the back, no risk. And they overthrew, obviously, Madrid and Barcelona this year, but very, very difficult to overthrow Pep at the moment in the Premier League for the manner he plays, for the amount of points he accumulates. So the Mourinho/Benitez type of manager, yeah, I agree with him being a fossil for that, just that reason only, but he still has gas left in the tank, I think, that type of management style.
There you go, Stu. You've got it. You've got the Liverpool out of him anyhow, that's for sure. One thing that came up during the week, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, and I just, our mistake caught it. Norway and Erling Haaland might not be in the next 2 World Cups. And there was just an article there, and I'm just looking at it here now. It says FIFA could threaten Norway with a ban from the 2026 World Cup as part of sanctions that they are considering over the country's potential boycott of the 2022 tournament, according to a report from the country. It seems that there's been over, and I'm going to get the numbers here, I think it's something like, in February, The Guardian reported that 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar since the World Cup was awarded on construction of the stadiums in around Qatar. And it's actually today that the government are having a vote, and I think the national football team, but I think it could be all sports, that they're having a look at it, anything to do with Qatar that they're going to protest against. So you could have an Erling Haaland not in a World Cup. How does that go? And could you see something actually, a knock-on effect? Because people have been pushing this to the side just because it's suited. If someone like Norway now all of a sudden boycott it, could you see anyone else following?
If Norway bite the bullet on this and do that, number one, I would applaud them, because this is a subject that is not getting any exposure. Money talks here, absolute money talks. So Qatar are rich. They shouldn't have even had a bloody World Cup. But you're playing in a country that can barely even house football. They were giving it off the back of oil money. And to have any number of people being killed while they're doing construction projects, it's not back in the 1800s anymore where they constructed a dam and you actually factored in five deaths as part of the construction. That ship has sailed long ago. And it's actually disgraceful again. And I would commend Norway if they do that. If they do it, you would hope that it's done like that in the right manner. The exposure is good, and that others would follow. Now, obviously, that's a discussion for each country to make. But if those stats are accurate, that there's people dying, and this is the cost of holding a World Cup or whatever there, it's not worth it, in my opinion. And I'd love to see a bit of momentum behind something like that. Now, Erling Haaland missing out in the World Cup.
Huge.
It obviously goes with it, yeah. That's shocking.
And it's from the Guardian, so it's very interesting. Again, Stu put up a comment there. Atletico scored as many goals as Real. Simone has his moments. Be interesting with Simone to see how long he's going to stay at Atletico, isn't it? Because we said it before. We thought, okay, he's going to run out of juice with these. They're playing the same way. The teams are going to get a bit used to it, and the players are going to get tired of it. He's still hanging in there, and he's took advantage of the slump from the other two this year.
Yeah, I love Simeone. I think he's an absolute warrior of a manager. I love his management style. I love the way he sets his teams up. But the one thing about Simeone, which he probably doesn't get credit for, he's lost one or two big players every season. Now, Atletico aren't poor. They're the third richest side in the league. So they're not, this isn't like they're like a Newcastle isn't there that far down the league as far as money goes. Atletico have always been one of the powerhouses. But he's absolutely dead right. They score goals. He brought in Suarez. He got an extra, 22-something goals out of him this season. He seems to be, remember Costa he had in the year before, Morata he brought back and got goals out of him. They definitely attack with intent, and they definitely have goals in them. But what I was saying there was they're more pragmatic in the back line. So I did an article on the goalkeepers, the best goalkeepers in Europe, and the Atletico goalkeeper does not go short, right? So you look at his stats when he's playing from the back. He kicks long an awful lot. Now, this isn't kicking up to your number 9 striker or your number 9, number 10. He's going wide and he's picking he's picking out his passes. But he would not be as good with the ball as his feet as Ederson and Alisson. But it's also reflective of Simeone. He doesn't take risk. His risk is in the final third of the field. So he sets them up not to lose. They don't mess around with the ball in the back. But they are very, very potent going forward. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Yeah. Now, Gary has reminded me of a topic that I nearly forgot to talk about, and that's Tottenham Hotspur. What a topic to talk about. Rumour, Spurs targeting Nuno with sporting director. He's in. Other sports chiefs prefer Pochettino, Potter, Brendan Rodgers. Nuno ideal for Spurs for me. Now, this is one of those lists, Neil, that must be getting down to the end of their list because everyone seems to be turning them down. And it's funny how they've had advanced talks with nearly every manager, Conte, Fonseca, that the advanced talks and then it stops and it's stalling. And it must be got to do with something with the transfer policies, because it came out about Conte that he wasn't happy with, I think it was something to do with Kane, and I think it was probably about getting players in, and he wasn't happy with this. I can only say that maybe speculate that it's probably Fonseca as well. Gattuso's been ruled out. A lot of clubs, Rodgers ruled himself out. Potter would probably take it, but I mean, I don't think Spurs fans would be, they can't get too excited about Graham Potter coming in.
Yeah.
I have a thing about Graham Potter where I see, I don't disrespect him at all. I think he's doing a decent job at Brighton. I don't think he's doing any more of a better job than Chris Hughton was. He's just playing a different style of football. Pochettino is not going to go back. He's there where he is. He has a little bit of a project going there. I thought Nuno was the main man. When Conte didn't get it, I thought they were going to go for Nuno. It just looks a little bit of a mess, and time's running out. So what would you do if you were in Levy's position?
There's something not right. And again, just following on from that, Mourinho came out and kind of mentioned something that he was misled by Levy, but he wouldn't elaborate on it. So was he misled over the transfer policy? Was he misled over the funds that they were going to get, the players that they were going to get? Because let's be honest, when Mourinho went in there, we all went, this is a guy that's used to going in and hand-picking players for positions when he knows he needs someone. And by the end of it, it was almost like he gave up playing all these young lads in the back line, and just very un-Marino-esque, I would say. It's mad worrying when one manager, you know what I mean? You might have a short list of 3 targets, but when 3 managers, one after the other, completely, abandon and say, listen, I'm distancing myself now from the club. Conte looked like a good fit, and then for him to walk, and then another one walks, and another one walks, it's very, very worrying for Spurs. So I can only speculate and say, number one, it's whether or not Harry Kane is going. And then if Harry Kane is going, number 2, where or how are the funds from the Harry Kane sale going to be spent? So if you're a manager and you're walking in Spurs on Monday morning, that's the questions you're asking Levy. Okay, is Harry Kane going? He is. Grand. Can I spend this 150 million? Who can we spend it on? What's my wage structure with that? So,
and the thing is, no matter how much money you get, Neil, it's very hard to replace a Harry Kane one way or the other.
And when teams know you have 150 million sitting in the bank, it's even worse. Yeah. So look what they did with the Bale money all them years ago. It was misspent, to say the least. So maybe they're a bit worried about that. But look, Spurs have to stick or twist eventually. They need to move on from this, because they had Mason in command for the last couple of weeks. That was never going to be a long-term project. The Nuno one interests me, because if you buy Nuno, you're bringing in Portuguese players, you're bringing in, a different style of play. And then again, he's exactly like he was at Wolves. He needs to be backed. So does he want it without Kane, or does he want to bring in money and go into the Portuguese league and start bringing in a couple of guys with him?
And he's left Wolves apparently because of the transfer policy that they had. They were letting go players. They let go Doherty. Who else did they let go? Jota. And there's talk. I mean, their centre forward is still hasn't come back from injury, but there was talk about him leaving as well. So it's interesting to see that he would leave there because of the transfer policy. To go to a Spurs where it might not be any different wouldn't make any sense either.
No, it definitely wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know what Levy seems to be a difficult guy to deal with, regardless if you're trying to transfer a player or if you're a manager. So it's very worrying that 2 or 3, what you would call their top targets, have now distanced themselves. So I'd be a little bit worried if I were Spurs. Number 1, because you can't seem to get a good name in there, and number 2, because you're potentially losing the best striker in the Premier League. Maybe they should go and get Rafa while he's still on the fence.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, that's, again, but the type of football, maybe they wouldn't like it. So they're in a bit of a sticky situation at the moment. Yeah. Eddie Howe is guaranteed to get that job, I think. Okay, we'll go through a couple of quick transfers. Jadon Sancho to Manchester United. They're bickering about $1 million here, $2 million there. Will it happen? Will it not happen?
I have a feeling, because it's come back again this year, I think they're going to get him. And I think they're going to get him for cheaper what they would have gotten from last year. I think it's helping Man United's cause. Put like this, if Sancho comes on for England in the Euros, sets up a load of goals, scores a load of goals, it maybe becomes a different conversation about money and how much he's worth. But funny enough, he seems to be almost flying under the radar now. So maybe now is the perfect time to get him in. I think they're doing the right thing, trying to get him early this time. So if they need to pull the plug in it, say you give him to the end of July, and if it doesn't happen, walk. Don't get stuck in the same circumstance they did last year and end up with nobody.
Okay. Gary Gibson wants to know, and we'll just go quickly on this one. Manchester City to offer 100 million, take it or leave it, for Harry Kane. Is he worth it? As we talked about earlier on, he hasn't done nothing in the Euros, but then again, he's not done too bad in the last 8 or 9 years. So yes or no, does he go to City? One way or the other, I suppose.
Whether it's 100 million or 150 million, I think it would be brilliant business for City, for United, for someone to get him. He's a phenomenal goal scorer. Put him up front for City, you won't be having the problems you're having right now for England. He will absolutely smash 25 goals next year if he's playing up front for Manchester City, and probably Man United as well. There is nobody, if not very, very few, top strikers like Harry Kane out there at the moment that will guarantee you 25 goals a season. I break the bank to get him. There's just like, who else is there? You say we're replacing Aguero, you have Erling Haaland, Mbappe, Kane, and then nobody. So for my money, because of the lack of real top quality talent out there, 100% I'd be going for Harry Kane.
I think he probably suits City the best, in my opinion, because that way he's playing anyhow, dropping back suits the way City plays. So, and he'll score goals no matter what. Okay, Paul Pogba may depart next year because he's only got a year left in his contract. Do Man United sell him now?
If you can get money for Paul Pogba, absolutely get rid of him now. I think, listen, the time is gone where Pogba is all of a sudden going to transform his Man United career, come out next year, play for the team, man of the match performances, not just the odd cameo. It must be very frustrating for United supporters that he can't deliver on a regular basis. There's no doubt the guy has talent. There's no doubt. That pass he did in the German game that time, whether he meant it or not, he has something in him. He has something about him. He's a good player. He just was probably never £100 million player. I think the price tag crushed him and maybe the expectation that went with it. But for my money, I would get rid of him. And if you could get like 50 million for him, even better, and reinvest it in the side. I think the Paul Pogba Man United romance is gone now. He's not going to all of a sudden come good for my money at the moment. I'd ship him on.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever done much. I think at Manchester United when he was there, first of all, he showed his arrogance, I suppose, and thinking that he should be playing when he wasn't ready to play. When he went to Juventus, I think if you look at the Italian league, Serie A, it's a great league to go over. If you have some qualities about yourself, look at Lukaku. Lukaku goes over there. He's a decent centre forward. He'll score goals for fun over there. It's re-energizing his whole career. I think Pogba did that when he went over to Italy. He looked better over there because it's just a totally different game. I think you re-energize your career. I think if you're not doing well somewhere, go to Italy. You're going to look $1 million. And when he went back to United, I think he's unless you have Kante, maybe you should go to Chelsea. Maybe that's the thing.
Yeah, that's
go to Chelsea, and he'll look unbelievable.
Well, for your money, Roy, the other thing looking at Man United, okay, they seem to put Pogba, because they don't trust him in what you call his best position. You end up shipping him out left or shipping him out right, which means he's then affecting Rashford's development, for example, who should be your left winger, and then they compensate the side just to put Pogba into the team. Like, from your perspective, that must be frustrating to watch that every few weeks.
Well, I was frustrated watching him since he joined back again in 2016. So there hasn't been. I remember the one term, which was it last year, for about 3 or 4 months, where he decided that he was going to play decent or good for a long period of time. And other than that, he hasn't performed well at all for Manchester United. He is not a great player. He's only an average player. And to tell you the truth, Fernandes, you compare him and Fernandes, there's no comparison. Fernandes is a better player. Get rid of Pogba. You get another midfielder in there. They talk about Declan Rice. Get Declan Rice in. Get him in there. That's your midfield. Then you have a solid midfield. I would have got rid of him ages ago. Barcelona seem to be buying no one, but getting in everyone. They've had 3 free transfers. The latest one, Memphis Depay.
Yeah, great signing. Like, I mean, you can't argue with that. Like, Wijnaldum, if he'd have gone there, by the way, I think would have been a game changer for Barcelona, because that's exactly the player they need. The guy that gives you that high energy, the midfield press, real good legs around the centre of the park. Barcelona are hamstrung because they've guys they can't get off the books. And then Messi has financially crippled them. So, look, maybe this is plan B until the Messi scenario finally moves. Retires or moves on, they get their £1 million of wages a week back, and then they can start going out and redoing the team. But yeah, it must be a great thing to pick up the likes of Memphis, a couple of these guys for nothing, and the only thing you have to do is pay wages. So it seems to be like that for another year. Whether it goes further than that, I don't know, but Memphis Depay will do a good job for them there, I think.
What about Aguero and Garcia? Can you see them making an impact there?
I don't know about Garcia, but I think Aguero has goals in him. There's no doubt about it. How they're going to twin him with Memphis in there as well. Are they going to change or tweak their system? I don't know. But Aguero should be able to get goals wherever he goes. I put it like this: if Luis Suarez can score 25 odd goals at the age he's at, and I mean he's way on the way down now at this stage, Aguero should be able to do the same. I don't see why not.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to leave the last question to Gary. Boom. Who's going to sign him?
Wasn't it PSG were linked with him during the week, Donnarumma? So this is obviously a falling out. He's no more time to go on his contract. They thought he was going to sign. He's very young, but he's very, very highly rated. So it'll be interesting who does get him. But I know Paris Saint-Germain were linked with him. Not that I even think Paris Saint-Germain need him. But this guy, if he is the next Buffon, for example, you could pick him up now at a good price. I'm surprised there's not more people looking for him. Premier League teams looking for him at the moment. The only one I've seen is Paris Saint-Germain, but he is massively rated in Italy at the moment. So it's a surprise to see him leave.
Yeah, I think United should be all over him and getting ready the other two or one anyhow. Go on, Gary, last one. No mention of Ashley Young going to Aston Villa. He had a good season at Inter, but it's going to be hard for him to keep up the levels, and it's a lot more competitive, Neil, in the Premier League than it is in Serie A.
Yeah, I wonder, like, where are they going to play him? Where I don't know what even position he was playing for international.
He was playing fullback.
Was he playing fullback still? Yeah, so
wingback.
Obviously the deal was good. They got him on decent money for Villa. It's his old club and all the rest. So look, he could do a job. I was never mad at him as a fullback anyway. I think he probably had his best days as a winger myself. But hey, you're getting a good move at the end. So you'll probably get a few quid in his back pocket. So I'm sure he's happy out.
Okay, Neil, thanks very much. Gary, Stu and Oisin, thanks very much for the questions. We'll talk to you next week. We're going to get into the knockout stages by next weekend in Euro 2020. Of course, with that tournament comes a lot of transfer rumours, so we'll be talking a lot about that. So do join us then. Of course, look on thebigkickoff.com. We have plenty of articles and podcasts there. Enjoy your rest.